So Farhan, on Sunday, Rick Tocchet sat down and started his media availability by saying Thatcher Demko is starting. And I bit hard. I was like reaching for my phone, getting ready to tweet it until he said he was joking. A little moment of levity and perhaps some of what the Vancouver Canucks could use heading into what will be a pressure-packed situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about the fact that Edmonton has the pressure on them because they've got so much more in the way of expectations compared to the Canucks. But Vancouver's going to be at home. They were leading in this series. You can't say there's going to be no pressure on them. They also don't have Game 7 experience as a group in this setting. They went through it in the bubble. They lost a second-round playoff game to Vegas in that one, but it's a little different when there's fans here and things like that. So he probably does need to lighten the room. And, one of the things with Tocchet is between all these games, he spent a lot of time on film, a lot of time on adjustments and personal conversations with different players and things like that. And he said today, this is not going to be about tactics. It's simply going to be about which team wants it more and where the effort is. He does not like what his team brought effort-wise in Game 6, but believes he's going to get a bounce-back effort like he has throughout these playoffs here in Game 7.
1-1, the Oilers core group, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Nurse, and company in their Game 7s. Of course, they got past the LA Kings last year. I think they're going to take a pretty measured, calm approach to this, Farhan. One area I know they've got to be spending some time on is their power play. So it's the sharpest weapon they have. It's been so deadly for them for so long, but it's gone cold. And you can't help but think in Game 7, somewhere in Game 7, there's going to be a moment where that power play gets a chance to make a massive difference. And the Canucks right now, Farhan, have a lot of confidence on their penalty kill because this Oiler power play has been stymied, and Edmonton is going to have to figure that out and be prepared for that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at Vancouver, they're kind of following a similar path in terms of their last two games, not being able to get a power play goal, missing out on a 5-on-3. And it almost feels, though, that they've just kind of moved on from their power play because Edmonton, it really is dependent on it. Vancouver, they really haven't been since the All-Star break, so we'll see. But, when you look at Rick Tocchet and potential adjustments at 5-on-5, one of the things it looks like he's going to do is he's going to put Elias Lindholm back with Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua. We saw Lindholm playing with Elias Pettersson. Doesn't look like that's going to happen in Game 7 because the Joshua Garland line, which was so effective, just wasn't the same with Teddy Bluger like it looked earlier in the season.
So Pettersson's going to have to drive a line. What do you think of that? Yeah. Because we questioned that before. He wasn't doing a great job driving a line.
Yeah, and he still isn't going to. I don't think that's going to change significantly at this point. So I just think they've got to figure these are our top two lines. This is where our best matchups lie, and we're going to be at home, and we're going to take that for what it's worth and live with whatever we get out of Elias Pettersson at this point.
So physicality in Game 7, the moment generally tends to bring it out in teams. Edmonton was the more physical team in the last game, and it benefited them. Who's going to handle that physicality, that energy, that enthusiasm, that intensity in Game 7? It's going to be a ton of fun watching.
Meanwhile, as far as the goaltenders are concerned in all of this, Stuart Skinner went through this a year ago. He got back between the pipes for Game 6 after sitting for 2 games. And then for Vancouver, you've got Arturi Shilovs. Right now, we talked about his World Championship experience. And even he said today, look, these guys are so much faster. It's such an upgrade in terms of talent and what you're trying to see. But in terms of pressure, when you've got the weight of a country that's on your shoulders, that's pressure. That's big pressure, even though it's going to feel pretty tense here tomorrow night. But I want to ask you about Stuart Skinner. And Vancouver didn't test him at all in Game 6. And you just said, look, just be fine, be okay, and that's going to be good enough for now. Was that enough for Skinner to reestablish his confidence and get back into this for Game 7?
I think losing the net had to be hard on him, right?
Yeah.
Probably had to throw the confidence a little bit. He said it was difficult, and he did his best to be a good teammate through those next few days, and that had to be a challenge just because you're dealing with so much disappointment. But he got back in, and there weren't, 7 Bell saves. There weren't a lot of those, Farhan. But
15 shots on goal.
Yeah, there were a couple of ones that were key. One at the end of the period there, a blocker save that I think went off his blocker and grazed a post or a crossbar. I think that there was enough of a challenge for him to feel like, okay, the moment was met. I think Stuart Skinner played well enough to believe that and to feel that way. So I could see him feeling confidence regained heading back into the net for Game number 7. And that's a really good thing because I think had there been a shaky goal or two, or this or that, and we were kind of wondering, but nobody's wondering. It's his net in Game number 7, and I think he earned that.
And despite Rick Tocchet's joke, it is going to be Shilovs, and he gave up 5 goals in the last game. And I think the Bouchard shot from the point, I thought he had a clean look, might have been one he should save. I don't know that you're going to blame him for the rest of that. They talked about how Vancouver's been so good at defending, and it just didn't look like the same Vancouver Canuck team at 5-on-5 in their own end. So I expect some adjustments. But as we get into this, this is that time. And And to think, Reese, we're only halfway through the playoffs at the end of this Game 7. Both of these teams are feeling it big time. You know, I still believe, regardless of what's said, that Elias Pettersson is dealing with something. Quinn Hughes played 25-plus minutes last night, but throughout this series, he's playing a lot. The underlying numbers aren't that kind to him.
Let me ask you about
he's not necessarily generating a ton with that time.
Yeah, because Evan Bouchard has been the more noticeable of the two, right?
No question.
The two-star defensemen coming into this series, and Bouchard has put a bigger dent in this thing. Especially offensively. He's scoring goals. He's making a difference. Hughes offensively in these playoffs so far is pretty underwhelming for a guy that's likely going to win the Norris Trophy here. So you watched him play all year.
Yeah.
What do you see? Where is his game at?
Yeah, I think his game is a very passive game right now, right? I think he's trying to get through, and I don't think he's nearly as aggressive or confident with the puck. I mean, look, he's playing heavy minutes. I think they're going to be able to work around some matchups tomorrow night playing at home and maybe get him into some favorable spots. But, you know, at the end of the day, the Canucks need Quinn Hughes to be a little bit more assertive offensively. One of the big things for Hughes coming into this season was, I want to score more. And you could see how aggressive he was going to the net and things like that. Now, we're not seeing it as much, even on breakouts, right? You know, the first Oiler that comes to him, he's not trying to beat that player. He's trying to get the puck off his stick. I don't know how much of this is a residual effect of the beating he took in the Nashville series and maybe early on at times in this series, but look, he hasn't been poor. He just hasn't been as excellent as he was this season.
I think about the word commanding when I think about Quinn Hughes through the regular season. He would command games. And I don't know that we're necessarily seeing that. He's having moments, but he's not commanding games.
No, there's no question. And with Pettersson, you were seeing less than that. And, you know, we saw it a little bit. He did get the assist setting up Nils Höglander in the last game, played better when they made the adjustments 2 games ago. But can he take another step? You know, and I think JT Miller, one of the few guys that didn't take part in the practice here on the day between Game 6 and 7. I think Brock Besser, I think he's dealing with something. Tyler Myers as well. Ian Cole's had extensive treatment after games, so I think guys are dealing with that. And I know Edmonton's in the same boat.
Well, I think McDavid and Hyman in particular, they haven't quite looked right. Like, McDavid isn't as explosive as we would normally see him in the regular season.
Doesn't lean into the shot as much as he did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there are times when he decides to shoot the puck. I mean, he can blow that thing past the goalie. We're not really seeing that kind of power in his shot. So I do believe that, I mean, everyone's dealing with something to a degree. But I think with McDavid, it's noticeable because he's so, you know, he's on a different level, and we're not necessarily seeing that. But he's finding ways to generate. He found moments in that last game, right? He was able to work his way into those moments. Zach Hyman, same thing. So what to expect from Connor McDavid.
And you think Hyman's dealing with something too?
Yeah, I believe so. Again, I think it's, you know, I'm going to say maybe lower body. I mean, everybody's banged up right now, Farhan, but you can tell that they're grinding through, and a lot of the Canucks are grinding through too. It's just that time of year right now. But for those Oiler big guns to have gotten on the board the way they did, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins played one of his best games of the playoffs. That was a good omen heading into game number 7 here. You think about it, the Oilers finally put together a complete effort, and it wasn't even close. The Canucks on nights where they've played their best hockey, and it's been 1-goal games. I'm not sure what that means, but it's notable.
Yeah, and certainly from a Canucks standpoint, JT Miller's not going to like the way he played. Brock Besser's told us he didn't like the way he played. They felt the same way coming out of Game 5. They bounced back. They bounced back to take a 3-2 lead in Game 5. Didn't go well in Game 6. We'll see if they can bounce back again. Everyone's dealing with it, and like I said, we're only halfway there. And the winner gets to take on the extremely deep, extremely talented, and #1 team in the West, the Dallas Stars, with a series that begins on Thursday.